That's one of my favorite things that I learned to do was when you're scrolling through social media, separating yourself and be like, what time is it? Think about who you are looking at the video instead of just watching the video, like fucking letting your eyes bleed. Like, think about what's going on just for a second. You can go back to scrolling and letting your eyes bleed. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. Yeah. All I am saying is become the observer instead of the video.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 57 of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, Mr.
Jason Scalora.
Jason Scalora, the super tired, overworked Jason Scalora.
Yes, sir.
We're back. So, how are you feeling, my man? Real quick.
You know, I'm good. I'm blissful. I'm just exhausted.
Just exhausted. Mans is grinding right now, all right? And you guys will see soon what exactly he's doing. Ooh. But yeah, guys, today we're going to be talking about the importance and how essential it is to have a sacred practice within your life. So whether that be meditation, whether that be religion, you know, going to church, whether that be studying the Bible, whether that be, you know, exercising every single day, whether that be just something that brings you, I guess you could say, inner peace, inner satisfaction.
A spiritual practice.
Exactly. A spiritual practice that you can turn to every single day. And it doesn't have to be proclaimed.
Right. That's what I was just going to say.
Spiritual, you know, like meditation is deemed as spiritual, but you don't have to be necessarily spiritual.
Well, it does have to be spiritual. It does have to be spiritual. You just need to redefine what spiritual means.
Exactly. What I was kind of getting on there was like how it doesn't have to be like a defined, like working out isn't necessarily a defined spiritual
practice. So nothing
traditional. Traditional.
It doesn't have to
be. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And for me in my own life, I've noticed that meditation is 1000% my sacred practice. And I said this, I was saying to you before in a management class one time. It was like our introduction to like who we are. And I was telling like the teacher in the class, I was just like, I think everyone should have a sacred practice in their life. It doesn't matter what it is, you know, it's something that you are able to turn to, and it's something that you can cleanse your, I guess you could say, consciousness, your awareness, right, your attention of, and really just, it's like just you rinsing it out, right, and really just, I guess you could say in meditation, it's really just focusing on your own attention, right, and clearing your mind, right, and not judging yourself. And it's like, for me, having that type of spiritual practice to get to your spirit or your attention or, you know, that awareness to really clear it up so you can feel that kind of inner peace, right? That like reinvigoration of your own energy is essential, I believe.
No, absolutely. And I think for me, immediately when you talk about meditation, the way you talked about cleansing it out, that for me, it's journaling. It's 100% journaling. Because for me, and now I actually don't meditate in the traditional way I used to. I don't sit down and do nothing. Yeah. I now meditate in a way where I take any of my mundane tasks, and I'll usually do one or two every day, where I'll do that task without a podcast, without music, with no stimulation to the best I can, and then focus completely on what I'm doing at hand, right? Because my goal, my outcome with meditation has always been to improve my level of presence and focus so that I can be grounded, be where my feet are, and live in the present moment. As corny and cliche as that sounds, it's essential. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my meditation practice has shifted over towards. But in terms of my spiritual practice, the number one thing for me is it has to be journaling, because that's when I go throughout my entirety of the day and philosophize everything that needs to be thought through fully, right? And so for me, a big part of spirituality is taking out every lesson that life needs to give you. Because when you live your life, when you have a good day or a bad day or an indifferent day, when you don't let those, my mind keeps bringing me back to the analogy of the email inbox. And when you go throughout your day, your email inbox packs up. You get email after email after email. What's going on with this relationship? What's going on here? Do you need to do this? What is this trying to tell you? And then when I go through and I journal, it allows me to sift through and read through fully each and every single one of those emails and learn the things I needed to learn, regardless of how big or small it was. Whether that means I needed to forgive myself for saying stupid to my mom, or if it means that I need to learn that okay, maybe I need to take a step back and not work 4 shifts a week at the restaurant this week because I'm exhausted and it's going to do X, Y, and Z or whatever. But if you never give yourself that time to go through your email inbox, you're always going to have these packed up emails and all these lessons that you need to learn, and you're always going to stay where you are. So for me, that's a big part of my spiritual practice of in this case, journaling, in the sense where you need to take out the lessons that life is trying to give you so that you can attract the life that you want to live.
Yeah, and a big thing that was coming up in my mind when you were talking about that was meditation, or just really any type of sacred practice that you have in your life, whether that be journaling, is a way for you to take a step back. Right. It's a way for you to, and I love the email box analogy, because it's like, rather than being engulfed in the mail, right, and not being able to recognize it's mail, with that practice, you're able to actually see all the emails that are coming up, right?
Think about that.
And once again, and I think a big point that you touched on that I didn't even mention was being able to learn from all these things. But in order for you to be able to learn all these things, you have to have that bird's eye view. You have to be able to review everything that's going on,
crazy.
right?
I didn't think about it that way.
And I think...
Let me clarify just real quick.
Of course. 100%.
You're saying essentially that a big part of it is understanding that when you're reading the email, you're not the email.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like you're not... Exactly.
You're separate from your thoughts.
Exactly. You're separate from your thoughts.
Okay.
That's
because I've heard that a million times and I know it. And I know it inherently.
That was one of the first things we said to each other when we first met.
Right. But I've never thought about it in that sense of like when I'm journaling, what I'm doing is consistently, whether or not I'm consciously thinking, I haven't been consciously thinking about it, but I'm consistently doing the repetitions of, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not
indirectly. Yep.
I'm not anything that my mind puts in front of me. Those are two separate things.
Yep.
And that's when you create like ultimate consciousness.
Yeah. And you very much separate yourself from, I guess you could say, the activities that you're doing in your life, right? But even though you are engulfed in an activity itself, but you're doing that activity, right? So you're, whether it be meditating or journaling, you're overviewing your entire day, and through you overviewing it, you're analyzing it, right? You're kind of, that bird's eye perspective is allowing you to or evaluate just how your day is going, or just, it's like a self-care, self-therapy type of thing that allows you to take a step back, right? And really just, it's like, I'm trying to think of a synonym for like self-care, right? Yeah. It's like when you go into the sauna, it's like a recovery process, right? And it really allows you to review, take a step back, and really relax at the same time through separating yourself and without constantly being engulfed by it, right? So whether it be like you had a really hard day, 9-to-5 job, you came home, the kids were yelling at you, and just continuous and constant like bullshit being thrown your way. When you enter this sacred practice, whether it be journaling, meditation, whatever, right? This is, in a hypothetical sense, it's you escaping that kind of all those activities, that your life situation, right? And you're really entering a domain that allows you to be the silent observer of that situation, right?
For me, what it makes me think of immediately is like, I forget where I heard this analogy, but I'm sure I could figure out where I should give the credit to. But anyways, your consciousness is essentially at the bottom of the ocean. And when your emotions come up, those are the waves on the top. But if you go down to the bottom of the ocean, everything is still. There's no waves, there's no crashing, there's no moving around. Everything is just as it is, right? But when you get lost in the emotion, positive or negative, that you're experiencing in your life, that's you being on the wave. So imagine like a little tiny sailboat, and you're on the top of the Atlantic Ocean, right? If the wave comes up, it brings you up, right? So in this case, the wave brings you up, you feel amazing, life is so good, but then, what happens when the wave goes down? Now all of a sudden you feel like shit, right? Because you're having a shitty day. But you wouldn't go through these extreme highs and lows of life if you just would get off the top of the ocean, AKA separate yourself from the emotions that you feel, because you aren't the emotions that you feel if you don't want to be, because you don't have to be.
You can be.
Of course it requires work, but I mean, what the fuck else are you going to do with your time? But in my eyes, that's how I view it, is like when you go throughout life, you can either decide to be the observer of your thoughts or to be engulfed by your thoughts. And those two different perspectives on life are going to give you two radically different outcomes on how you feel on a day-to-day basis.
So true. And so many people don't even realize that they're on top of the wave, right? They think that's all there is, right? They think
they're like, no, I have to captain the ship. I have to captain the ship. Get off the boat. Get off the boat.
Right? But underneath all that and in that wave itself is that type of, is your awareness, is your attention, right? Like that's what, you're engulfed by that thought, but you don't consciously know it, right? So you just have the habits, you have the routines in your life that, like you said before, you have conditioned yourself to naturally get to a point where you're naturally engulfed by emotions, right? By feelings, right? And so like when I get angry, right? So when anger comes up, right, that big wave, I become anger rather than just feeling anger. Right.
And I know people are going to listen to that, and if they don't understand, you're going to come across as fucking insane. Like feeling angry or being angry. What are you fucking talking about?
To be more concrete about it, if you need more concrete, you're not anger. It's like, so being anger, you are anger, right? Rather than feeling anger, you're observing anger. Right. And so another thing I wanted to touch on too, in conjunction with being able to separate your emotions, was separating yourself from your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, is these type of sacred practices are always things that you can turn to, right? They're always things in your life that no matter how bad shit gets, right? No matter how bad it is out there, you can always turn in here, right? And really just have that self-reflection process to rinse out your attention, to rinse out your perception of reality, right? To rinse out whatever you need to rinse out. And there's so many people nowadays that simply don't have these types of habits in their life, whether it be journaling, meditation, working out, or just simply being mindful. They don't have these types of habits where they never, ever rinse out and put themselves through rehab, get in the sauna, right? Recover their muscles. You know, they just have all this type of shit in their lives on top of them, and it just builds up over time. They never, ever clean themselves out of that. And so over time, it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And eventually, as we both know, it's gotta be externalized some way, right? Yeah. And I mean, they don't necessarily have to externalize it, but if they're never going to the root cause of the issue, right, through simply observing their thoughts or journaling or whatever, right? It's going to come out in a really bad way, right? And it's 100%. Just going to make them into a very negative person when they continually, every single day, have the choice where they don't have to be engulfed by these feelings, emotions, and thoughts.
100%. Yeah, I mean, for me, immediately what I think about is, what's your trigger points? Like, think about what it is for you. For me, it was anything that was competitive. Video games, soccer, anything. Sports especially. And so it's hard because, like, your perspective on it is like, you hear me screaming on Rocket League.
Oh, dude, it's so funny. I love it.
It's like, if I didn't get the laughs and the reactions from it, I wouldn't do it. But it's like, it's still like, so funny. Like, that's not what I'm talking about here, in case, because you don't know the old part of me that was completely unconscious. Sometimes I still get like that. Sometimes I can still fall into the habit. But essentially, for me, my favorite flavor of angry would always be when I was playing FIFA, right? And the one thing that I could constantly count on was whenever I was gonna have the worst fucking time playing FIFA is when I was completely aligned and not completely aligned, completely embodied in every emotion that I was feeling, right? And so the way I internalize it is, no matter what happens, the emotions that you experience are gonna be from the neck down at least, right? Whether or not you're conscious of them, or at the bottom of the ocean or at the top, you're gonna feel it in your body. Yep. But you could separate your mind from where it is. And so for me, that's the difference. That's the difference in how it feels, right? When I'm playing FIFA and I'm completely unconscious in just rage mode, 100% of my body is completely in that rage mode. But when I'm not, when I'm conscious, when I'm aware of the separation between me and those angry thoughts, when I'm not the anger and I'm the person experiencing the angry feelings, my mind stays clear 100%. Because you can always keep your mind at the bottom of the ocean regardless of where your body is. Right, because those are two very separate things. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely, dude.
So
identify. Great example.
I think that's what people should really try and think about: is where's your favorite flavor of shitty emotions? Are you competitive? Are you super, Do you have this crazy drive to feel liked and wanted? Like, what is it for you? I can't answer that. I know for me, it's when I was playing video games when I was on the soccer field when I was younger, and reflecting on those times, I now understand that when I'm in those moments and after those moments are done, and I think about what was going on in those times, was I completely embodied by the emotion? Was I completely unconscious? Or was I separate from the emotion? Because I can be pissed off because somebody cheats me or somebody clips my ankles when I'm through on goal or whatever, but I could still be still in my mind. But if I'm not, that's when it's a red flag of, okay, maybe it's time to take a look at this. Maybe I should start meditating, journaling, or finding some sort of spiritual practice.
Yeah.
If you don't want to use the word spiritual practice, don't use the word spiritual practice.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest red flag of, hey, it's time to do something about this.
Yeah, just something that you can turn to, whether it be going to counseling, whether it be working out, whether it be just going for a walk, right? Something that you can turn to that helps you get through that anger in a healthy manner. Because I think we touched on this before, maybe in our emotional maturity episode, that like when that emotion first comes up, and I know for me, like, last night I was playing Fall Guys, right? And this stupid motherfucking bean was in front of me, and I didn't qualify for the race, all right? And I got for probably like a whole second, I became anger, right?
Yeah.
But then, I mean, like probably a second after that, my head became like got above the water, right? And like exactly like you said, my body was feeling anger, but I was able to be conscious of it and not identify with it, right? Yeah. And so
it's almost like, for me, immediately what makes me think of is, you're a hot pan, but you could turn off the stove and the pan will eventually cool down. Okay. But if you leave the stove on, which is your mind, the pan's going to keep fucking heating up, heating up, heating up, heating up.
Yeah.
You can't control the heat of the pan, but you can control the stove. You can control the level of the flame that's making the pan hot.
Yeah. And you really, in a concrete way to break that down, it's when you are the anger, you're automatically on autopilot. Your attention automatically goes into that emotion, right? Your attention automatically becomes that emotion. But when you turn off the heat, right? When you take that choice to not be the emotion, you shift your attention, right?
100%.
You shift your attention to being aware of your emotions, right? Being aware of the feelings and the response that you're giving in response to that emotion. Yeah, you might act a different way because emotions are some emotions, I should say, are incredibly hard to, I guess, combat, right? And respond in a positive manner, right? Depending on the circumstance you're in. But if you're able to remain conscious of that emotion, keep your head above the water, you're going to be able to breathe, right? You're not going to be, because imagine trying to breathe underwater, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's just not going to happen, right? You're going to die. You're going to die.
You're literally going to die.
You're literally, dude, going to die. Yeah. So whether it be, I mean, dude, for me, it's so important for people to know this, right? It's just so important for people to recognize this within themselves, because whether they be on social media, whether they be on just comparing themselves to others, whether they be just out in the real world, right? Or just in their own head, in their own thoughts, right? They just continuously identify with their own thoughts, become their emotions, become their feelings, right? And they let this dictate their relationships 100%. And interactions on a daily basis. And it's sad to see, but it's so simple, yet so hard for people.
One of the most tangible practices, I forget where I heard this one as well, whatever. One of the most tangible practices that I've heard is, don't even try to spend less time on Instagram or TikTok. Don't try and change any of your daily habits. Yeah. But when you're on social media, what I want you to try to do to the best of your ability is, when you're scrolling through, every once in a while, just try and check in with yourself. Become the observer of the TikTok instead of being completely immersed in the TikTok. Exactly, right? Yep. Because after a certain amount of scrolls, you're not going to be conscious of your hand holding the phone, your eyes looking at the screen, where you are, where you're sitting, what time it is. You're just going to literally be immersed. It's almost like, when you're watching a movie and you can snap out of it and you realize, oh shit, this is like a TV and there's a plant next to the TV. Yeah. Like, it's almost like it's like a VR headset on your face after you're watching, like after you've been watching the movie for like 30 minutes of like, you don't see the screen. You don't see anything. All you are is completely immersed in the movie. And that's not always a good or bad thing, but when you find yourself always in a space where you're never separate from the stimulation that you're experiencing, that's when you get lost. That's when you create the habit that's going to get you lost in those shitty emotions when somebody cuts you off in traffic, or somebody cheats you in FIFA, or you don't qualify in Fall Guys. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so a tangible, because if you're looking for something that's concrete for you to actually start off with, that's one of my favorite things that I love to do. Was when you're scrolling through social media, separating yourself and being like, what time is it? Think about who you are looking at the video instead of just watching the video like fucking letting your eyes bleed. Like, think about what's going on just for a second. You can go back to scrolling and letting your eyes bleed. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. All I am saying is become the observer instead of the video. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. It's so true, because I know in my own experience, like when I'm watching you. Oh yeah, this is what I want to touch on. So, because we've touched on this before in the flow state episode, flow mode coming soon. The flow state episode, like where, because being in the flow state, whether it be like playing soccer, meditation, right? That's the ideal kind of state you want to be in, right? But with social media, right, you can enter this kind of flow state with an external stimuli taking over your complete attention, right? But if you're able to be conscious of like exiting that flow state, right, that's when it allows you to, because that's exactly what we touched on in that episode, right? It's like which flow state do you want to be in, right? It's like you don't necessarily, I mean, you can be in a flow state on social media, but most times, unless you're just have like a really good algorithm, you're going to come across things that are not beneficial, and information is going to come into your conscious mind, or into your mind, I should say, and spark emotions and feelings, and it's going to generate habits and behaviors that are going to dictate your life, and you're not even going to be aware of it, right? It's like all these different types of factors, but if you're able to be conscious of that, right, and like exit that quote unquote social media flow state, right, that will allow you to live, start to make simple changes, right? And then over time, this is also what I want to touch on. Sorry, bro. So you'll be able to make those simple changes. And I think nowadays too, it's not just, it's very hard to just be like, oh, stop all technology, stop all social media use, all phone use. Like, you can for sure, definitely do it. But, especially in our lives, when social media and technology and the like are just such a essential part, that if we don't necessarily use them, right, as like a tool, whether it depends on what career you have or whatever, you're actually be at more of a disadvantage. So if I went to school today without technology, right, I'd be boned, right? So but it's. So like you were touching on before, it's just like having those simple habits and behaviors, those intellectual techniques to really help you stay conscious of like what you're placing your attention on social media, right? Or online, I should say, right? How you're using technology and you're not necessarily letting it use you, right? I think that is the gem that people really need to take into consideration, considering they can't just put down all technology and get rid of everything else.
Right. 100%.
Boom. Boom. Bang! All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 57 of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy,
Jason, Mr. Dr. Jason Scalora.
We apologize for this little shorter episode, but your boy and your other boy is a little bit busy, so we're just trying to bang out some content for you all. Better than nothing, right? So we had a great discussion, I think.
We did have a great discussion.
And anything else you want to say, my man?
Stay handsome.
Love yourself because I love you, and peace.
Peace.